And you've seen since FTX collapsed, earlier this week, last week. What does time even mean? You've seen the sort of exchanges that remain standing, be out there in force in email to their users in the press saying, no, 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 we didn't have exposure to FTX. We're
Yeah.
solvent. We're fine. We're doing withdrawals. Coinbase has been out there. Binance has been out there. And so in this narrow space, the differentiator is basically, I swear we're not a scam. Please believe me.
Welcome to Punchy by Rival, where we take the gloves off to share the hard-hitting realities of the challenger marketing world. Each week, we'll break down the buzz and cut through the BS of the top stories and trends to tell you what you really need to know and do differently to grow your brand and career. We are live. We were off last week, and actually we're going to be off next week for Thanksgiving in the US. So it's one of only two episodes of Punchy that we're doing this month, but it's a very special one. We have Jason Mikula joining us, founder and managing director of Fintech Business Weekly and 312 Global Strategies. Previously, he was the VP of product at Marcus by Goldman Sachs and head of digital marketing for future finance and growth marketing at LendUp. Jason, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Can't complain. I do not get Thanksgiving off next week because it is not a holiday here in the Netherlands.
There's no Dutch Thanksgiving? You should get on that.
I have to special order a turkey at the butcher because they do not have them at the grocery store.
Apparently, there's a shortage of turkeys in the UK. Actually, there's like a bird flu situation going around. So, yeah, first world problems, but we're dealing with that. We're doing chicken instead. Anyway, Jenna, will you have turkeys at your Thanksgiving next week?
I will have smoked turkeys since
Ooh,
my friends and I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to smoke a turkey. So
hold
yes.
on. You do not get up at 5 in the morning.
Swear to God, I do. Swear to God, I do. I get up with Tim. We get up and we smoke the turkey at 5 a.m.
Wow. All right. For those who don't know, Jenna is to say she's not a morning person would be like, DuBose, help me out here. You're the one with like the fast metaphors.
I don't
and
know. It's like
analogies.
one of those SAT logic problems where you're like the opposite of things, like Jenna is to the evening as everyone else is to the morning, or
It's
like
a
smoked
special
turkey.
occasion. It's a
It's
special
the exception
occasion.
that proves the rule. You're like
Yeah.
smoked turkey is the only thing you will wake up for at 5 in the morning.
And,
True. Not
there's like
marketing. That's for
hot
sure. Not
toddies.
marketing.
Yeah. No,
Marketing is
marketing.
not smoked turkey.
No.
Great. Marketing is not smoked turkey, also known as DuBose Cole. How you doing?
Good. We're gonna have glazed ham. I'm in the South. I'm
You're
in
in the
my
South,
parents'
yeah.
guest room at the moment, hence the recumbent bike and the monogrammed pillows. It's going to be an incredibly exciting time. So we have glazed ham, and also speaking of shortages, there's a Dijon mustard shortage in Europe at the moment. There is not a
It's been going
Dijon
on for a
mustard,
while.
but there's
Yeah.
not one in the States, right? So I'm loading up on the
Lucky
Grey
you.
Poupon to head back. I'm going to be the most popular person at Dijon mustard style occasions for most
Could
of
this
Christmas.
is this a business opportunity for Rival? Could we do marketing strategy and import export of Dijon mustard and other condiments, perhaps?
Only if we
Illegal,
refer to it as the
import export.
like legal Dijon arbitrage is how I think we have to refer to it. So it'll be good.
All right, I think we got a title for this episode. Here we go. Let's get into the show. So for anyone who hasn't joined us or listened before, we're going to go around the horn here with one article that each guest has chosen to talk about this week. Each person will have 1 minute to give their thoughts on it, and then we'll have 3 minutes to discuss it as a group. I will give out points at the end of it, basically just based on how I'm feeling about that person. And then at the end, whoever has the most points is going to get 2 minutes. I think it's 2 minutes. It might be 1 minute for a rant or rave on something that they are passionate about. Cool. Let's do it. First story. Jason, the honors go to you. So if you're in the world of financial services, and to be honest, even if you're not, this has been a massive story over the last couple of weeks. FTX crashes and burns. There's tons of articles out there about this really unbelievable story. But this one is specifically from the FT. So if you're not aware of what's been going on, FTX was a crypto exchange, which did everything from lending crypto products to managing crypto assets. FTX and 100 affiliate businesses have filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in Delaware. One of their largest VC backers wrote down the investment to zero in a memo to their LPs. And it's amazing because, this was kind of like the poster child, the golden company in many ways of what was going on in the crypto space. I think at one point they were valued at $32 billion or something around there. So, Jason, what help us understand what happened here and your perspective from a brand and marketing standpoint of what all this means.
Yeah, so I'll try to do this in 60 seconds. I mean, I think there's been plenty of analysis on the financial component of this, which is essentially a whole lot of uh, you know intra-party dealing between different entities that Sam Bankman-Fried controlled. Alameda Trading, which was essentially a hedge fund or prop trading shop. FTX, which held customer funds, which a lot of which disappeared somewhere, and the ultimate collapse of these two and about 130 associated entities. Setting aside that piece, I think looking at sort of the brand implications, not just for FTX, but crypto as a whole. I mean, this is not the Lehman moment, it's the Enron moment. I mean, FTX looks basically like a fraud, and it was supposed to be, as you pointed out, the legit player in the ecosystem that wanted more regulation. I mean, we already sort of hit a low point earlier in the year. This really feels like the nail in the coffin for retail mass adoption of cryptocurrency and potentially Web3, metaverse, etc.
Yeah, that's
Did
kind of
I
what
do
I was
it?
thinking.
1 minute, we're
You
done. We
did.
solved
You
it.
did. You nailed it. It's so much of the opportunity in this space comes from the potential for mass mainstream adoption of crypto, NFT, Web3 in general. And it's things like this, particularly when people just read the headlines and don't, because there was some interesting stuff that went on between Binance and FTX and how it all went down. But it definitely doesn't help in terms of the progress and the opportunity for businesses in this space. DuBose, I'm going to throw it over to you for your builds.
So I think you raised such interesting points there, Jason. I mean, what I would say, I tend to think this is probably the end of a phase of cryptocurrency and how people think about investment for it. But I've always been a firm believer that I think when this goes mass, crypto isn't going to go mass. Crypto use cases are going to go mass. I imagine the failure of this, a bit like Enron. It's not like large amounts of corporate governance changed overnight because of it. I mean, short of Sarbanes-Oxley, but at least there was a sense that there will be opportunity that will come out of cryptocurrency in use. It's a bit like writing off American dentistry just because everyone caught tuberculosis in the Wild West. At a certain point, more regulation is probably just going to be what's needed. And I think, the interesting things that this probably closes the door on, that sense of crypto libertarianism, and, we're going to displace all currencies and everyone's going to kind of get paid in Shiba Inu, that's probably gone. But I think the sense of, the use cases behind this, the technology and benefits that are there, I think this is an apt time over the next few years for those to go to the forefront. I think that's going to be probably the next phase of what we expect from technology in the market.
Jenna, I saw you trying to stroke your beard and look thoughtful. What do you
My
have to add?
hypothetical beard. I really wish I had one of those. No, I just really like that DuBose said, well, it didn't really change corporate governance. And then he listed the most major piece of corporate governance legislation that's been passed in the last 20 years. I just really like that. Yeah, like I don't know. I wasn't really I was kind of nonplussed by this news, honestly. I mean, it's a really big deal. That's a really silly thing for me to say. It was a really, really big deal. But I have never really thought that, that the potential for crypto, to DuBose's point, has been in consumer mass adoption of crypto. It has very little, I think, functional utility for most people. I think that there are some exceptions. I think in countries that are not the US and the UK, around using crypto as arbitrage for national currencies that face inflationary pressures and a couple other things. But I think that the larger use cases, to DuBose's point, have always been in other commercial applications of crypto and blockchain and ledger technology. And that although I will also say that I don't think that this is the end of this crypto libertarianism thing, because the major backlash that I've seen from this has been, this is proof that we need more decentralization. How could you trust these people with the more decentralization? I'm like, oh man, that is not what's about to happen. It's about to be, I think, at the same time, some of the other news that got absorbed by this was that I think the Fed has picked some blockchains to do a centralized US dollar coin test case. I think I read something about that. And so I think that, like I say, it's all right. The consumer use cases maybe will go away a little bit, but it's the other things. And so I was kind of all right, well, this isn't really a blow to the core utility of what crypto and blockchain will be. I mean, it's a bummer, but I don't know. Yeah.
All right. 3 minutes on the clock. Builds. Jason, I'm going to go back to you. What do you have to say in addition?
We shouldn't be surprised that the retail experience was a bubble and that bubble popped, right? I mean, we don't need to look that far back to see other examples of this. Earlier in the pandemic, with a sort of meme stock mania, you know, GameStop, AMC, etc., blowing up in a way that had nothing to do with the fundamentals of those companies, and that eventually came back to earth. Or looking a little bit further back, the housing market in 2000, running up to 2007, 2008, when there's a sense of, oh, like everybody's getting rich. My brother-in-law's rich. My taxi driver's talking about how he made all this money on Bitcoin. All I see on Instagram is like crypto bros with Lambos. Like, why am I not getting rich? Like, I should buy some Bitcoin, some Ethereum. But when there's no fundamentals to support it, and I mean, I struggle to see any viable use case for crypto, perhaps with the narrow exception of countries like Argentina, Venezuela, Turkey, where there are traditional currency controls and you want to move money outside the country or outside your local currency. That I see. But I don't see any legitimate use case or any legitimate value creation that justifies sustaining the valuations that were attached. So we shouldn't be surprised that eventually, these came back down to earth. And really, the peak was a year ago in November, before all the Super Bowl commercials ran and before the explosions we saw happen this year with Three Arrows Capital, with Terra Luna, and now with FTX, BlockFi, and affiliated entities. So I'm not surprised. What this looks like going forward, I think a lot of that is going to depend on how the regulatory establishment reacts and how much more pain unfolds in the coming weeks.
Jason, do you think that crypto should not so yeah, I agree that there's not direct consumer utility for the vast majority of coins, right? Again, with the exceptions that I think that we agree on. But I do think that its value to retailer is as an investment vehicle, with the understanding that I don't think that this changes the perception that Web3 is the next kind of evolution of the internet, and realistically some of the larger financial and commercial connectors of the world. And so that the use case for crypto then would be that much like equities and stocks are essentially the funding mechanism for how companies will stay in business, that ownership of coins and then having fiat currency invested in that is how the blockchains like Ethereum will manage and conduct themselves. And so owning a portion of the funding for that blockchain is a viable investment vehicle. I still hold a little bit of BTC and Ether. And also deep cut for the longtime listeners of the show, Algorand was not exposed to FTX, so thumbs up Algorand. I feel decent about that one investment. But I don't know. I think that is kind of still the only utilities. Maybe retail should still be in it, but just with the expectation of it's stocks.
I really hope from now on you refer to it as the good people at Algorand, like they've sponsored you. Not like those good people at Algorand, they're trustworthy. But I think there is something there, the distributed computing, the idea of distributed storage, the persistent ownership powered by blockchain and distributed ledger. I think those are things that are going to be in consumers' lives, but probably not crypto in consumers' lives. Very quickly, it just becomes the thing I bought here. It naturally works in 3 different video games that have adopted kind of reading off that ledger. I think those types of things are really exciting. And I think, Jason, your point, the ability to move currency instantaneously across markets, the ability for certain markets to leapfrog kind of currency barriers, I think those are exciting things. But yeah, I think the age of I've now made a coin, 5 minutes later we're all millionaires is probably come and gone, which is a shame because I just figured out how to do that, but I'm a few years late to the party. Not like the good people at Algorand.
We should get them to sponsor. Jenna, can you hook us up? Jason, I know that we're over time on this article, but I'm just curious because you mentioned the Super Bowl, bonanza, all of these crypto exchanges, Web3 businesses buying big Super Bowl spots, big celebrity endorsements. A lot of them got into sports arena stadium naming rights. I think FTX had $150+ million naming rights deal for the Miami Heat stadium in Miami. I'd just be curious from a brand and marketing perspective, the thing that I always struggle with was how do they actually differentiate themselves? If they're trying to go after the mainstream consumers, of course they are, if they're buying Super Bowl naming rights, etc., team sponsorships. What's your perspective on kind of differentiation from a brand standpoint in this space?
So, I mean, thinking about, what we just witnessed with FTX, what is the most important differentiation? It's basically trying to convince your consumers or potential consumers we're not a scam, right? And you've seen since FTX collapsed, whatever, earlier this week, last week. What does time even mean? You've seen the sort of exchanges that remain standing, be out there in force in email to their users in the press saying, no, 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 we didn't have exposure to FTX.
Yeah.
We're solvent. We're fine. We're doing withdrawals. Coinbase has been out there. Binance has been out there. And so in this narrow space, the differentiator is basically, I swear we're not a scam. Please believe me. If you look back at those Super Bowl commercials, and I actually like wrote up a piece after the Super Bowl, which I did not watch. I watched the halftime show. Um, you know, whatever, 3 or 4, Crypto.com, FTX, Coinbase was the floating QR code, so take that for what it is. And eToro to a certain extent, what they were basically pushing was FOMO. Like, this is the next big
Yeah.
thing. This is the next big thing. You're going to miss out on it. Nothing about the product, the features, the differentiation. It was basically what I said before. Your neighbor's getting rich. Your taxi driver's getting rich. Your barber's getting rich. You're dumb if you don't do this. And that, I mean, not that that is a message that can't be effective, but it's not a message of differentiation.
Yep. Be an interesting space to watch. That's for sure. All right. So we spent a lot of time on that story, but I think it was a really important one and an interesting one to dig into. So let's move on. We might not be able to do the full 3-minute discussion on the next 2 stories. Let's see where we get to. Story number 2 from Jenna. And this already happened. I think the blurb I have is written in the past tense, but this happened, right? Okay, cool.
Yes.
So 500 drones swarmed NYC's skyline in a new advertising ploy. So this article is from the Gothamist, although I saw it somewhere, I think in a more mainstream publication as well, maybe the New York Times. Candy Crush, to launch a new ad campaign, they got a drone choreographer to coordinate 500 plus drones in what was basically a drone billboard in or around Manhattan. And so the conversation is about, is this okay? Talks about it being visual pollution. Quote from a state senator, I think it's outrageous to be spoiling our city's skyline for private profit. Also, they mentioned comparisons to the billboard boat, which I had not heard of before, but there was a boat that went around Manhattan as a billboard and that got pushed out. Although how is that really all that different from the trucks that drive down the street with the billboard? So Jenna, I'm going to start with you. Please elaborate on your story for this week.
Yeah, so some assholes down in Virginia, this agency, Pixis or whatever the hell their name is, came up with this idea that they're going to launch these drones from New Jersey because it's illegal to do this in New York City. And so they had to go to New Jersey, the only place that would let them do this, to launch these drones from a state park and again, advertise this Candy Crush app. I don't really have that much to say about this other than I hate these people that did this. And I am 100% about to go run targeted ads to people that work at this company in order to steal their talent. And it's going to be, do you not want to work for an asshole that does totally unethical things? Come work for us instead.
Nice.
And say, I think people should sabotage pitches like this. I think that this is the kind of thing that is like, absolutely, like, this is ripe for you to be like, nope, we're not going to do this. I think that this is where we should like resist this kind of shit. I'm putting on my anarchist hat. Fuck the man. Fuck these ideas. I think this was ridiculous and absolutely outrageous. Don't turn city skylines into advertisements for crummy mobile app games. I can't believe that somebody would think that this is an idea that they were okay with. And they did it because they live in Virginia and they didn't have to do it. And they inconvenienced people in New York and they didn't care.
But the client also bought it, right? The agency pitched it. The client bought it. So
Yeah.
they're to blame as well.
Also, yeah, I mean, that's certainly true. And again, it is one of those things, like, I think that there's plenty of fuck yous to go around for this particular activation. But I think that if you're brand side, if you're agency side, these are the kinds of ideas that I think that we need to draw the line on some of these things. And people saying, well, it's just business or whatever else is a terrible slippery slope. And this is an example of the type of work that, frankly, people should refuse to do.
DuBose?
Few things. A, the difference between the car advertisement that went around New York, and the boat advertisement that went around New York is water. Secondly, I think the real example here, it's the presence of water. The second thing I would really say is I tend to agree with Jenna. There's a giant bag of fuck you to go around on this. It can be passed out as if Christmas came early. But I think, the key takeout I would kind of say on this one is just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And I think that's a great principle for life and for media planning. As a young media planner, I actually looked into this years ago because I want to say I probably could have done this first. For the 2012 Olympics, for a client that wasn't a sponsor, we were like, could we basically get 3 or 4 drones, put their logo on a big piece of cloth, and then fly it down the Thames? And the response from anyone we ask at the British government is, we will shoot that out of the air. And this is a country that has a very tight firearm regulations. So I'm just saying, A, that was the appropriate response for that. And B, I think, the trick here is capturing people's attention doesn't naturally mean it's a positive thing. And I think media placements like this are going to have the less than desired effect. People are going to keep trying to do them because too many people have watched Blade Runner. But just because it was in both of those movies doesn't mean we should probably replicate it. So yeah, terrible idea. Couldn't done it elsewhere. And I think in other markets, there's anti-drone technology now, which is just drones with nets that take down other drones. I would like to invest in that. I will chip in for some anti-drone advertising drones.
Jason, is there a contrarian opinion here, or are you on the same page?
My first reaction when I saw this story was, Candy Crush is still a thing? I mean, I guess I'm a little bit behind because
So the ad worked, is what you're saying.
I guess. I'm definitely a little bit behind because I just started playing Wordle like literally 3 weeks ago. So I'm not really in like the target audience or target demo. I have to say that I broadly share Jenna and DuBose's opinion. Like, I understand the need to break through in a very crowded information space, right? Like, we're all bombarded with ads constantly, whether it's Instagram or on the tube or the subway or whatever. And naturally, consumers become blind. I mean, billboard blindness, advertising blindness to these, to these placements. And so there's this sort of like arms race mentality of what is the craziest thing you can do to get attention, both from the person passing by on the street and presumably with a story like this, that second order media attention. Not surprised it's from New Jersey, home of Dr. Oz, a notorious puppy killer. So I think all around this is just terrible.
Allegedly
what's next?
notorious.
Oh no, he admitted it. He admitted
Yeah.
it. This is true. Listeners to the
Never
show,
mind.
Google this. He admitted that he killed those puppies in his research at Columbia. That's true. That's not even hyperbole. So glad he lost. Anyways, yeah, look, what's next? Like, are we gonna like advertise in space? Like, and then we're gonna have like a space garbage problem? Like,
That's definitely gonna happen.
There's a
already
Russian
space
startup.
garbage problem.
There's
but that's definitely gonna
a
happen.
there's a startup that was investigating that if you could launch screens into lower Earth orbit and then make them geostationary.
I hate it. I hate it. I like even again, like my New Yorker fury at this and the get the fuck out of my city, like again, just purely from a marketer perspective, this is exactly what we talk about when we say like you should be adding value in your marketing, like to your consumers. Like if you want to be customer centric, you need to be adding value, and this literally does nothing but detract from like the lives and experiences of the people that you're trying to actually target. Like I'm with Jason on this one. I appreciate the need for sometimes like stunty activations, and we've had our own share of those ideas, including our ones for Cannes next year that I still really want that one to happen. But it has to be value oriented, and this is not. This does nothing but take from people, and I hate it.
And I think we've missed the most important point here, which is Eric saying the New York Times is more respected than Gotham is. I think they're on the same level. I think, ever since the death of Gawker, this is what we've got. Hold on to it. Cherish it in this crazy world.
Yeah.
All right. I realized I did award points, but I forgot to share the points in the first round. I know you all have been, waiting on the edge of your seat. So Jason, I gave you 15 points in the first round. That's a good number of points. DuBose, I gave you 5. Jen, I gave you 10. Jason and DuBose, I gave you 10 points each for the second round. Jen, I gave you 20. Love the passion. All right. So going into the final round, we got Jason at 25 points, DuBose at 15, Jenna at 30. So it's really anybody's game because I could award 1,000 points to somebody in the final round. But let's go. DuBose, your story from Marketing Week. A new marketing phase is resulting in empty but effective advertising. And I'm going to need you to explain this to me because the article seems to go in a few different places. So obviously the focus of it is this new ad from Belvedere Vodka with Daniel Craig that is like 2.5 minutes of him just dancing around. And the summary of the article, so it talks about how people tend to get angry when advertising lacks a deeper meaning, but sometimes that's a good thing in a world where everyone is being bombarded by information. And so the author of this article asserts that the question around what does this ad mean are ultimately irrelevant because this ad is a, quote, cool slice of nothing. So we're witnessing a new marketing moment in which meaning and authenticity are traded for eyeballs and attention. It may not last forever, but it's clearly the current opportunity. And they also talk about Brewdog, who flagrantly lies in their ads, saying it's the planet's favorite beer. But if dancing Daniel Craig means nothing, but it sells more vodka, I guess similar to the Candy Crush story, is that okay? But DuBose, I'll let you elaborate.
So there's a few things here. This article is from Mark Ritson, vaunted advertising opinionist and the David Oppenheimer of advertising in our generation, one would assume, with content like
Wow.
this. I'm just saying it could be allegedly. So anyway, I think, the thing here is there's basically, this is a story in 3 parts. I think on his analysis of the Daniel Craig ad, I think one of the things I find there is a meaning behind that, in that it's Daniel Craig, who people like, doing something funny. And basically it's directed by Taika Waititi. So basically this is a Taika Waititi film without a lot of dialogue, with Daniel Craig in it. That is brand advertising, and it's a funny thing that through attribution confers itself on vodka. That is an acceptable approach. What we cannot do is then extrapolate that through to things like Brewdog. And that's why I found this an article that I agreed with the kind of empty fun yay bit. Not everything has to be serious for Belvedere, but I think there is a key point here, which is, especially when things come to like purpose, a lot of the stuff Brewdog's been putting out lately about boycotting the World Cup, but then still showing it in bars. Like, there is an element of responsible advertising needs to have substance behind it, even if the consumer isn't actively asking for it when you're claiming societal good. And B, there's the idea that, I think, and this is where he attempts to excuse some of it, but there's a bit of hand wringing because he was saying the advertising community, it has a backlash consumers won't have for something like Brewdog because we care too much and consumers don't. That's potentially true, but I think, especially when it comes to CSR, societal good comms, I think we have to hold ourselves to having some substance there, because otherwise you're just feeding into nihilism and distrust from the marketing industry. So, TLDR from me, Daniel Craig dancing, funny, thumbs up. Greenwashing and corporate societal washing of things, thumbs down. So that's where I disagree with Ritzy on this one.
Good summary. Yeah, but it's not empty. It's just different, right? It's not kind of like a literal product driven pitch. It's more of, like you said, a brand. It's a film basically that is an ad. So
It's
that's
the
not, I wouldn't
moving
call that
image.
empty. It's just like a different way of doing it. Jason, what do you have to say on this?
I have a hard time getting upset about this, right? I mean, how many liquor brands are endorsed or owned by a celebrity, or in in my space, fintech space, the trend, especially the last whatever 2-3 years, was the celebrity investor, right? So aspiration in that sort of green neobanking space is always like, Leonardo DiCaprio backed, green neobank. It's like, okay, like, I don't care about that, but if it helps them get consumers, or more realistically, helps them get press coverage, okay, not a bad strategy. I think, to your point, DuBose, the problem is when you're saying something that can then be quickly shown to be insincere, right? So if you're saying, oh, we care about the planet, but like, oh, wait, you're actually like funding all these like oil companies or these companies that like kill baby seals, and that's something that's verifiable easily, it's going to be a problem. I mean, you see some of this, in like Pride Month, where during Pride Month, every company, makes their logo like rainbow, etc. But if the rest of the year you're not being, sincerely supportive of GLBTQ plus community, like, people pick up on that, and then that does not reflect well if what we were doing is perceived as pandering and insincere.
Jenna, anything to add?
Yeah, congratulations to Mark Ritson for discovering Baudrillard. I'm really glad that you just read a copy of Simulacra and Simulation and decided to incorporate these ideas into your work. That's where it's just like, he's like, oh yeah, like this is like an empty, like meaningless slice of nothing. And it's like, okay, great. Is this literally like the first time you've read this book and realized that yes, most media and advertising depicts empty truths? Like, yes, like this is not new groundbreaking concepts again. And I think that like it just kind of misses the point that yes, the purpose of this ad is to associate Daniel Craig, who was James Bond and who is a rich, popular, good-looking guy, with Belvedere vodka, and that's really kind of the point, and that's been the point of brand advertising for a long time. And again, to DuBose's point about, yeah, this is a Taika Waititi film. Like he did the, for those that don't know, he did the Thor, some of the Thor movies. He's done a couple other Marvel movies. I think he did one of the Star Wars movies, didn't he, DuBose?
I think he voiced something in one of them.
Something, yeah. But anyways,
he should do one. With that should start here. He should direct a Star Wars movie. It would be incredible.
I think that he wrote one or something. I don't know. But anyways, but yeah, like this is just kind of a, like, I don't really understand like that Ritson being like, oh, this is like a new kind of advertising. This has been a long established like precedent of like the, yes, like it's that most advertising are empty associative, connections between concepts. That's literally the whole point of the book that he's like referencing in here, but then goes on and quotes a different one. And I didn't really see much of a point about this other than DuBose being correct about like nobody's saying that the BrewDog advertising isn't effective. We're all saying maybe it's not a good thing to go out and lie to your customers. Like maybe we shouldn't do that and be dicks like the BrewDog, like James at BrewDog or wherever, I don't know.
I feel like Mark Ritson at this point just says whatever and people buy it and believe it, right?
Yeah.
Somebody
or no, like he has to do the contrarian thing. Like I know, like so sometimes like I'm sure
contrarian.
But like some of it has to be like rage bait. I'm sure that some of it works is like the Baudrillard references is like rage bait for people.
Well, all the stuff with him and Gary, that was all him just being contrarian to try to generate a little bit of buzz.
Yeah.
All right. 15 points, everybody, which means Jenna, you are a winner with 45 points. Rant or rave from you, please.
Rave. I'll rave about the new this. It's the This Is Not Meat. Everybody know it's the UK meatless substitute one. I really like their new campaign. You guys should go look at it. It's on their Instagram. It's like the pork sausages, and so because it's the holidays or whatever, and so they've got like this is not like pork sausages. Like they got ads, like standard ads in some places, but they're sending somebody around in a nice pork sausage. This is not pork sausage outfit and putting him next to those things. And I like that as an example of stunty advertising that is a value add to your audience because it's really hilarious seeing a guy in a pork sausage costume. And I really like this. And I think that they do good, responsible marketing and advertising. Proof that you can be interesting and cool and not be dicks.
I reached out to I tried to get in touch with a couple of people from their team to come to Zag Out on the 6th. So hopefully we can get them.
Love those
on
guys.
The show.
Also, it's like my favorite like meatless substitute. Their stuff's really good. Yeah.
Cool. Anyway. I believe that's everything that we have for today. Yep, I think we got through all of it. So, Jason, thank you so much for making the time. And for everybody listening, definitely go subscribe to Fintech Business Weekly. It is great. Highly recommend. All right. Have a good day.
Bye. Thank you, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
See ya.
Punchy is a production of Rival. We are a growth consultancy that builds challenger brands, strategies, and capabilities to disrupt categories. If you want to learn more about us, check out wearerival.com. If you want to connect with Jenna, DuBose, or myself, email us at media@wearerival.com or find us on LinkedIn. If you enjoyed today's show, please subscribe, share with anyone you think might enjoy it, and leave us a review. Thanks so much for listening, and see you next week.